Rockin' Larry Locken with Pleiadian Express Productions, Pleiadian Late Night. Tonight with me, I have got a very dear, my favorite guest, one of the best guests I've ever had on this show, and he's also a management member of Pleiadian Express Productions, Tyler Biedebach, a.k.a. the Yudra. And we're just here tonight to catch up on a few things. We're going to talk about symbolism, walking in nature. We're going to talk about whatever comes to mind. And I just wanted to say, Tyler, what a great honor it is to have you back on the show, and I can't wait to catch up with you, brother, and this should be exciting. How are you feeling, man, and what's been going on in your life?
Larry, thank you for that amazing introduction, sir. It is it's amazing to be back on the air with you, back on the cosmic wavelength of everybody. So I just wanted to thank you, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful night here in Tennessee where I'm at, and excited, man. Excited to be back, man. Excited to be in that source flow, man. We're unscripted, you know, so we're just gonna keep rocking all night long if we have to.
Yeah, and we don't exist in any time, so it's okay. But you mentioned what a beautiful night, and you were mentioning in the pre-show what a gorgeous night it was in Tennessee, you know, for winter conditions. And I was mentioning that, ironically, out here on the Oregon coast where I'm at, it's a little bit colder, and we're having ice rain. And I'm just glad that you're feeling the flow, and I think we should just go unscripted. And, you know, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what's been going on out there? I noticed you've got a new look about you. You're feeling in a great flow, and, you know, just talk to everybody about what's been going on in the Yudra's life.
Absolutely, man. So I took a Facebook hiatus for probably about 2.5 months. Just really was like, finally, I was like, all right, enough's enough. I got to disconnect. I got to figure out what's going on in my own life, and then, you know, I'll go back into the world a little bit wiser. Been growing out the beard, growing out facial hair. We were talking a little bit about how hair is, in a way, kind of like an antenna, or the Native Americans view hair as being kind of an antenna. So I'm going to keep growing these antennas out and feeling my way through the universe. It's been a challenging past couple months, but still rocking regardless. Still persistent, still consistent, still just keeping on with the plan, man, which is ultimately, you know, returning to source and working our way back and building that bridge for other people to make that journey as well, and know that they're not making that journey alone, that they're surrounded by their brothers and sisters who have sure enough been there. And yeah, man, we have some really cool stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about symbols and how symbols are being used. What are symbols? And we're going to talk a little bit about nature, and we're going to talk a little bit about. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the personal work that I've been doing in my life in the past couple months to you know, really prepare myself, you know, physically, mentally, spiritually for what's going on right now with these crazy energies that we are in. You know, it's like, in a way, I feel like we're coming out of our caves, you know, and when we just kind of had like something interesting with the full moon, and it's like the nodes of the moon were aligned, and, you know, in a lot of ways we've kind of gone deep down, dark, and, like, you know, we kind of saw the things that we didn't want to see, and we really had to look at them. And now we're kind of in this period of you know, getting back in the flow of going back out, and, you know, because initially that was what we did. You know, we kind of we left source for, you know, to come here to this planet. You know, we went away from source to ultimately, you know, share our message and to be that, you know, that grounded, you know, receiver of energy. So yeah, man. So great things are happening right here, Larry.
Yeah, and you, excuse me, you had mentioned taking a little bit of a hiatus from Facebook. You know, I took a month or two off myself to get grounded, to get back in touch with nature, and I saw some things about myself that I really needed to address. and it just really hits home with what you said. And you know what, I would like for you to expand a little bit more on, when you took that hiatus, what are some of the things that you thought about, and what are some of the energies you were feeling, and what led up to you wanting to take that hiatus from Facebook or feeling like you needed to?
That's a great question, man. Ultimately, I feel it came down to how I was feeling, like literally checking in with my own internal climate and seeing how I was feeling about everything. And it's one of the greatest truth detectors, is our internal climate. It's like when you're feeling something, you're feeling it for a reason. So my feeling was it was slightly on the note of just underwhelmed with what I was seeing. I was seeing, a lot of people who were just misguided, who were maybe not knowing what they were saying, and a lot of times people don't always mean what they say, and they don't always say what they mean, and it it ultimately started from kind of right there, just knowing that some people were saying some things that they didn't necessarily mean, but I just really wanted a chance to take a step back from it and just kind of observe, because in a lot of ways our soul or our spirit is like an observer here. It's like having this experience, and been doing a lot of listening to music, man. Like when I took my break, I really that was something that I've always loved. I've always loved music. My father's a musician. I'm a musician. I sang choir in high school, and I did theater and all that stuff. And I've always really connected. Music's always been a really big part of my truth of why I'm here. Sharing my message, and yeah, I've been listening to a lot of kind of reggae, instrumental, experimental bands. There's a couple that I'm going to shout out here, but there's Nahko, which is Nahko, and I'm going to type this in for Larry here because he definitely needs to check this out. Yeah, Nahko and the Medicine for the People, popular artist. And another one is Mike Love, and he kind of looks like I do. I mean, he doesn't look like I do. Sorry, he's a human, so he kind of looks like
yeah,
me.
Yeah, well, but not quite as good. I mean, you've got that Pleiadian starseed thing going on, and I hear what you say about music because it's funny you mention that. I don't typically listen to Coast AM, but a couple weeks ago I was tuned into it. And it had one of my favorite personalities on there, a guy named David Sereda, and he was talking about the harmonic convergence in music and the tones that music set in whatever music it is that we particularly vibe to, like you were talking about reggae and whatnot. It really is our key to the awakening. He was talking about that, and it just hit home because these tones can really set us off on a good, it's just amazing. I don't know what more to say. I mean, and I think that what you're talking about is just, it totally hits home more than that because it helped you to get in attunement, and get into tune with what's going on,
Absolutely. That, my truth meter went off there as far as, music in a lot of ways being the answer for people. And it is a medicine, and it's like one doesn't have to listen to the radio for more than 15 minutes. I mean, radio is one of the oldest forms of programming. I mean, it's the one that the powers that were have had the longest time to perfect. So it's like all the music that they play on the radio, it's like there's a reason why they're playing it, and there's the reason why the advertisements come up when they're supposed to. It's, to keep you hooked in, and, real good music, is almost like a detachment from all that. It's like, it's almost like the music resonates within you to say, like, let me be, like, I'm good. Like, I don't need any kind of programming. Like, this music is what I need right now. And totally, man, vibrational attainment and it gets you on that vibration or that frequency or wavelength, whatever you want to call it, that you're able, even if it's for a moment, you can feel better. And even that small moment where you feel better, it can just compound and become, it can be a game changer. It can change your whole day. Another one is Fortunate Youth. This is one of the guys who I work with. He loves to listen to these guys, and they're actually really, really good. So I would encourage everyone to check them out. A couple other things that I've been doing when I was kind of taking a break was I've been doing a lot of contract clearing, or like agreement clearing. And I want to kind of clear that up and touch on that a little bit when I say contract and agreement clearing, because there are certain contracts and agreements that we've made with ourselves that are in our best interests. There are also ones that we have made that are not in our best interests, but some of the ones that are in our best interests are like driving on the right side of the road, stopping at a stoplight. Like when you see a red light, to stop your car so that you don't go into traffic. It's like, those are just two examples. Those are just what popped into my head. But some of the agreements that we may have made that do not serve our best interest or don't serve my best interest are like making assumptions, which has been a big one. My dad had given me the 4 Agreements. It's an amazing book that talks about 4 basic agreements that you can basically replace these old agreements with, that will ultimately serve you. And the first one is just to be impeccable with your word. So I'll start out though by clearing, and I'll say, I withdraw my consent to honor any agreements that do not serve my best interests. These are agreements that I may have made consciously or unconsciously. If I made them under any sort of duress, they are null and void. I do not honor these agreements, and I choose to replace them with agreements that do serve me and do serve my best interest and the best interest of mankind and humanity. And being impeccable with your word, the word impeccable has to do, peccable means sin, and the prefix in means without. So it's without sin, and being without sin with your words. And that agreement, just that one, he talks about in the book, is powerful enough to ultimately pull you out of whatever rut you're in, and put you in your perfect place, your heaven. You can ultimately, and it's really amazing how what I've really noticed in the past couple months especially is how one person can be living in heaven while someone right next to them can be living in like a perfect hell. It's like, their kids are running around and they're being rambunctious and they're like causing a scene, and right next to them there's this couple, and it's like they're being very polite and courteous, and it's like you can just tell there's just a different energy about those people. You kind of know what I'm talking about, Larry?
Yeah, I do. And you know what I think is so funny about today's day and age is like it's more of a mindset than it is a socio-economic situation, right? Where, okay, you could have one family, it's a financial thing, and the other family, it's because they're of a lower financial level. But what you're talking about is it's a mindset. It doesn't matter what economic situation they're from or what situation they're in, but it's like a consciousness mindset among these two different situations you're talking about. And you see it all the time, and you see it more and more, and whether you're at the grocery store, whether you're wherever the hell you are, whether you're at AutoZone getting some oil for your car that you shouldn't even need, or whether you're at the park, or whether you're, like I said, at a grocery store, you see these situations, and it's almost like it's a consciousness standpoint that comes from these people, and that bases how they deal with the situation,
Absolutely. I agree. And it was when you were talking about that, this popped in my head as far as like different families from like different economic standpoints. I was reminded of this video I saw of Jack LaLanne, the famous workout instructor, one of the first workout instructors of his time. The guy who was pulling like 70 boats in the water on his 70th birthday. Like this guy was, I mean, again, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but the video that I watched, he was actually talking. It wasn't had nothing to do with working out. He was talking about a trip that he made to South America, and how, in America traditionally, I mean, you just don't see people smile that often, and it's such a simple thing, but it's like you just don't see people who are happy, because it's like, there's so much that we're told we need to feel bad about, or that we should be stressing about, and it's like these places in South America. He went down there, and he had got on a bus. Bus is crowded. I mean, it wasn't a nice neighborhood at all. I mean, people were in tattered clothes. I mean, people who hardly had any clothes at all. And there's at the back of the bus, there's this baby crying, and everyone just kind of looking, and the mom's like nursing it, trying to get it to calm down, cooing it, and she starts singing this song, and everyone on the bus starts singing along with the mother. And it was like none of these people knew each other. It wasn't anything that you could recreate, or you couldn't, like, these people didn't know this was going to happen, but everyone just started bursting out laughing after the end of the song. And it was just what you had said. It reminded me of that, how it doesn't matter what economic standpoint is, like, these people were so happy just to be a part of a community, even though they had so little. And I think that's such a profound thing, is that it's like we're always talking about, oh, the 99 or the 1%, is like, in a lot of the ways, like, if you have running water in your house, and you have clothes, you have a closet full of clothes, it's like we're part of the 1%. We're part of the wealth. Like, there are people in Africa who don't even have running water. So it's like we are so fortunate and blessed to have what we have. And we have more than enough to be this point. um, some of the other cleansing that I've been doing is physically. Um, I've been doing the master cleanse, which is this is the fifth time that I've done this, and I try to do it. I do it. Try, do or do not. There is no try. I do it 3 to 4 times a year, and it's basically it's like a fast, or like a reduction diet, where you basically just drink this liquid for 10 days, and you don't eat any food at all. You drink a concoction of lemon, maple syrup, cayenne pepper, and water, and you just drink that for 10 days. And this will, again, be the 5th time that I'm doing it. And it's like I'm telling my coworkers about this, and they're like, man, you're crazy. Like, that's so bad for you. Where do you get your protein? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, man, who told you that we need protein? Like, I mean, the whole pyramid, the food pyramid, is literally it's a fucking pyramid. Excuse my language.
Yeah. If you want to remain a lizard, you need all the protein you can get. Apparently, they want it. Either way, whether we're vegetarians or not, they want to suck it to us or sock it to us. Peanut butter, whether who's to say we really need it? Exactly.
Well, I've also heard that calcium is another major thing, and it's something that I've been watching movies a lot lately, and something that's really stood out. But I can't remember exactly what show. I think it was like this TV series called Gotham, which has to do with like Batman and Gotham City.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like a drug called Venom that was like introduced, and it made you crave calcium. Like, these people were drinking gallons and gallons of milk, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the gallon challenge, but if you drink a gallon of milk,
but I've been there.
You will not be able to keep down. But yeah, sorry, that was just kind of a side note thing.
No, it's not, because I can relate to that, Tyler, more than you know. The calcium. I mean, when I was growing up, and even sometimes now, I'm a vegetarian, but still, the milk, I just crave it, man. And I just, it's crazy. I just want to chug the whole gallon of it. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. It's crazy, because I think we're stuck into that. We crave calcium or protein, and I'm wondering, what in the fuck for? Why do we? It's got to be some manipulation, like just the same reason we have this obsession with gold.
Shiny objects, man. I do love shiny objects. But yeah, it's so I've been doing obviously a lot of obviously, sorry, that's presumptuous. So I've been doing a lot of mini meditations. So I haven't been able to get to the point yet. I currently struggle with meditating for longer than like 5 or 10 minutes. I know some people who can go like hours in meditation, and that's great. I feel that I can achieve the same level that someone would get from doing an hour of meditation in a couple minutes. It just really depends on how and where your attention is, like how focused you are, or how not. Because really, with meditation, it's almost kind of a not focus. It's counterintuitive to the kind of awareness that you would have of like looking around and seeing everything. You almost stop looking. And some people close their eyes. I usually close my eyes. But just doing a lot of oversoul building, like picturing my oversoul, imagining what it looks like, filling it with light, filling it with, beautiful, perfect geometry, figures, talking to my higher self. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but I mean, there's absolutely this little voice in us that it doesn't shout. It doesn't have a need to shout. I mean, it's a symbiotic part of ourself. It's just as much us as we are it. And it's always been with us. It's always had our best interest throughout different timelines, different planes of existence. It's always been there, and for a long time we've forgotten what it sounds like. So it's like, we have so much clutter in our minds. And if you think about, our mind as like a room that I'm sitting in, it's like the room's either full of stuff and it's cluttered and you can't even move around on the floor, or is your room neat and organized? Do you know where everything is? Is it clean? Do you keep everything, everything has its proper place? You really want to have that clean, proper place kind of mentality to be able to have that communication with your higher self, is what I've found, which ultimately leads to self-healing, which is something that we have also forgotten. And we've forgotten the fact that we are not only able to self-heal, we are able to teach others how to self-heal. But it starts with being able to heal yourself first, and being able to lead by example. Sorry, I keep looking over here at my notes.
No, it's okay. Hence the question, though, real quick, while you're going over your notes. What time does your maid come in? Because your room looks immaculate, man.
Again, man, living in the 1%, that I think that we really are. It's like I do have someone who comes by every week, and they clean our house. So I'm blessed to have that.
Okay.
I mean, you could probably look, like, I don't make my bed though. Like, that's one thing that I still struggle with when I wake out of bed. But I did hear a good thing that when I did the door-to-door sales thing, one of the guys was talking about Lester Craft, and he talked about when you get out of bed in the morning, when you make your bed, you're almost telling yourself, like, all right, so it's like the night's over, like sleep time's done, the day is here, it's time to get to business, it's time to get to work, which is great. And I will start making my bed, or at least tucking in the corners and putting the pillows back in place, because that's so true. It's like we spend who knows how long in dream time in the spirit world, which is what I really have come to know it as, is our dream time is the spirit world. That's more of who we are than this 3D holographic representation. The dream time ultimately is much more fluid. It's almost kind of like you're walking on crystals. It's like the whole landscape is like you can barely touch your toe on, take one step and it's like the whole scene changes. It's like you take another step and it's like, the scene changes, or you're flying, or you're going underwater. It's just you can do amazing things that, we don't think that, or, we're limited to in this three-dimensional matrix. But healing through dream time is something that I've really been doing, and doing a lot of lucid dreaming. I haven't been able to successfully do yet. I currently struggle with like laying down and like slowly getting into that state of like lucid dreaming. I have a lot better success when I wake up in my dream than like trying to convince myself while I'm still, in this body, that I'm having dream time, because it's still kind of limited because of our ego. And not to bash on the ego at all, because I mean, we need our ego again to do basic things. Like me talking to you right now, I have to access a certain part of that to be able to present and formulate words properly. But yeah, waking up inside the dream, I've had a lot better success, and I may share a couple little tips and tricks that I have to wake up inside of a dream here in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, a lot of agreements that we have made consciously or unconsciously tend to surface in our dream time. So it's like I've been having a lot of dreams lately where I'm in a race, or I'm having to battle things, which is baloney. So like I shouldn't have to be battling, and a lot of times the reason why we are battling or we're fighting other things is because we've made agreements with beings, or astral beings, and it's like these astral beings will come to us in our dream time and they'll say, oh, I'm so great and so wise and so powerful, look at me, I'm a higher dimensional being. And it's like there's no humility there. It's like they don't have any humility, and because if they really had to look at themselves, they would realize that they're spiritual prostitutes. They're energy vampires. They don't have any substance of themselves. If they were actually the whole astral world is, I think, thought of to be this higher, and it's a higher plane, but I mean, you'll come across beings that claim that they are of a higher vibration, where it's like, really, if you look at a rainbow, then it actually, the rainbow goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which actually shows us, and I challenge anyone to pause this right now and Google a rainbow, look at it, and you'll see that an actual rainbow, or if you're out in nature after a storm and you can see it, the actual rainbow shows that the further inside you go, the higher the actual vibration is. Or at least that's what's shown in our color spectrum. I mean, we only see a small range of color, but the further in that you go is actually higher. So anything that comes to you from out here, even in your dream time, is of a lower vibration than you actually are. So you are already at a higher vibration. So to get back to my point, I was, battling, or I was fighting off things, and I had kind of like I like woken up a little bit. I wasn't fully lucid, but I was like, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I having to battle these things? And I feel, and again, I could be mistaken, but I feel like I've made either conscious or unconscious agreements that I need to be doing battle. But it's like the whole idea of battling, I mean, represents two sides, which is what we're trying to get away from. We're trying to get back to source, the one complete wholeness. And if everything is one and whole, then there's nothing to battle. You are the same and you are equal to everything else. And there is nothing to fight for. There's nothing to fight against. You're connected. You already have everything, and everything has, a part of itself.
Tyler, do you think maybe it's what you're talking about is like a final cleansing process? Because it seems to me like I've been wanting to spend a lot of time the last month or so in that dream state, like you're talking about, that you've been in and been into doing, and it's like I've been wanting to spend endless amounts of times in there. And I wonder if this is part of a final cleansing process, maybe for certain souls.
Absolutely. I definitely feel that. I feel that some souls or spirits that have incarnated here and to have a physical experience, they didn't come here for the physical experience which you and I are now having. They came here for the dreamtime experience. They came here for this spiritual side. So it's like there's almost like two parallel stories that are happening simultaneously. And even though we may not be asleep right now, there are other people in the world who are dreaming right now and having that dream time experience. So, I mean, that's always, I read that somewhere or I heard that somewhere, and that actually resonated very much with me, that some of the souls that came here, because I mean, you could look around at the actual world, the three-dimensional world, and you're like, why would I choose this for myself? Like, really, like, why would I choose to have this experience? This is fucking terrible. And I think
No shit.
and it's like, I think that we forget that sometimes, just as we've forgotten who we really are. That maybe that's for those people to figure out, and maybe this will help somebody. And that's my ultimate intention is to give someone a golden nugget, even if it's one thing that they take away from this entire talk, but something that they're like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. So that was something for me. It was like people being here, or souls incarnating here, to have the physical experience, but more the reason why they came here was to have that spirit, to have that soul experience in the dream world.
Yeah, no question about it. And we were talking about in the pre-show as well, like some of the illusions that we get stuck into. And this weekend I was watching some football with my son. I gotta say, some NFL football, and I found myself getting pissed off at a game. And I know that we had talked about, I had ran that by you in the pre-show, and you were talking about how we get stuck in the illusion and stuck into what we're comfortable with. And I got upset yesterday about one of the results of a football game, finding and that's something I had done for the first time, like, since my whole awakening started. And it just got me really upset, and then I calmed down quickly. But we get stuck into this game of what makes us happy and what makes us comfortable and what we're used to, and it's just one of them things, I guess.
I hear you, man. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the uncomfortable parts of the awakening, is that you have to not necessarily go outside of yourself, but you have to kind of go in and feel what you're feeling, like, and especially with the energies lately, there are things where it's almost like we have to look at our own shit, and it's almost like the universe is putting our nose in it, and it's like making us basically say, like, okay, this is what I've dealt out for myself. This is ultimately part of my baggage that I need to release and that I need to address. And it's a big, we've had that period, and it's like now we're like coming back out of the cave. It's like we're walking back out into the light, and one interesting kind of story I wanted to share with people. It's kind of like a parable, but there are two blind horses, and they were born in a cave, and they have no idea, obviously they don't know where to go, but they just keep moving, and they just keep driving and keep driving and keep driving and keep driving, keep moving the plow or whatever, just keep going and keep going. And sure enough, I mean, they find their way to the light, sure enough. And it has to do, that story really has to do with persistence more than anything, where even if you don't know where you're going, as long as you just keep moving and just keep sticking with it, and if, again, check in with yourself and be like, does this feel right? Do I really feel like I'm going in, the right direction? Does this feel like it resonates with who I am and what I'm about? And because but in a way we are blind. It's like we see in such a limited spectrum and we hear in such a limited spectrum. There's an entire electromagnetic frequency, and there's an entire electromagnetic body, which I think is our dreamtime body, that exists simultaneously in dreamtime and now, that is able to feel and see and hear all these other sensations. And more than anything, the persistence of, just, if the pony just keeps driving, I mean, sure enough, we'll make our way out of the cave. We just have to keep going, keep sticking with it, keep plucking at it, keep doing our work. And I know that the people listening to this, you've been doing your work, and it may not be easy right now, but it's like that you're on the right track, or you're on the right path. I mean, things are clicking. Synchronicities have been happening right and left, and when you're being true to yourself, synchronicities, like, that's the true way of information happening, or having a revelation or a realization. Is it's synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity, because you're being true to yourself. So it's like the universe is confirming, like, yes, you're right, yes, you're on the right path, good. It's like winking at you. It's like, yes, you got it, you know what's going on, you're good.
Yeah, totally, man. Hey, a wink is just as good as a nod to a blind horse, and the synchronicity is just incredible that's been going on lately. I mean, it just seems endless. Everywhere you look, every day, every person you talk to, especially in these groups, it's just the synchronicity is just amazing. I may think of the same song you're thinking of. I may think of the same thought you're thinking of, the same idea. Thinking of you, like tonight. I mean, you know what I mean? That we hadn't talked in a while because you had taken the
Yeah, the Facebook hiatus, man, and then it was like, boom, it was like instantly reconnected, man.
and these
Like,
synchronicities are really, yeah, it's like the road to telepathy, brother.
that's right, man. That's a huge point, and I'm gonna talk about telepathy real quick, and we're gonna get into some symbolism. Telepathy is the most natural form of communication, I feel, and it's actually the truest form of communication, because it's impossible to hide intentions when you are connected mind to mind or heart to heart. It's impossible to hide your intentions, and in a lot of the Dolores Cannon books that I've read, they talk about how most of the communication that happens, between our higher self, or extra dimension, or interdimensional beings, or extraterrestrial beings that have, the best intention for humanity and mankind, it happens telepathically, because, again, because of the intention, so that there's no lost message, there's no room for interpretation. It's just clear, right in, I would say blatant, but I mean, that's not the right word, but it's crystal clear. It's there's nothing to be gained or lost. But telepathic communication has been something that I've really been working on a lot, and a lot of that originates from what it feels. It feels like it originates from here, and the mind, is like, oh, well, I think it originates from up here, though. But actually, telepathic communication is like a toroidal flow frequency. Yeah, it's like it's more of a, it's more, it travels faster than a thought would, because our thoughts are going 1,000 miles per hour, and our emotions are going at 5 miles per hour. So it's like the empathy, the emotions, the slow, continual flow message is really where telepathic communication happens. It happens when the brain slows down, which is basically, it's like what I've been hoping for is kind of, if a slowdown, if not a complete fucking stop of, what's going on around us, return us to our last known point of origin, where And I mean that's my continual driving factor. Obviously, I've got my own three-dimensional, ego, dreams and desires and things I want to do while I'm here. But it's like the soul experience is, to slow it down to a complete stop. If you think about it like a roller coaster, that we've just been riding the ride over and over and over again, like Michelle's awesome article, where she, it's time to get off the ride. It's time to let new people on, and there are definitely people who want off.
There are like old souls like me and Michelle. Yes, yes, yes. Tyler, you may still have one more run in you, but I hear what you're saying exactly, brother, and it's like,
It's amazing, man. It's it's amazing though when
to
you.
you, even though in 3D you're a lot younger than us, but I mean, what tell us what are some of before you get into symbolism and your counterpoint here, what are some of Tyler Biedebach's 3D ambitions? I can't
So
imagine.
yeah, man, a couple of the things that I've had to kind of release, and a couple of the goals is I wanted to become a world-renowned Oscar award-winning actor. And I still do community plays, and I still do things on a smaller scale. Um, but that was one that I really kind of had to release back into the universe, because I'm going to talk about this later. I don't like what the Actors Guild is about, the two masks that you wear. A couple of my other goals, though, things that I do believe and I know that I'm going to achieve while I'm still here, while I still have time, is I really want to build an Earth ship, which is there's like five main components or six to an Earth ship, but it's made out of recycled tires. You pack tires, and it's like one of the primary building materials. You use like bottles and aluminum cans as building materials, as like almost like you set it up in walls. You set up aluminum cans in walls, and then you pour concrete, and it's kind of like a filler. Um, and it uses it recycles its own rainwater. So you collect rainwater from the roof, and then that water is used to put water in your sinks, in your toilet. Actually, the water that goes to your toilet, the water is collected. It feeds your plants. You actually have a greenhouse built to the front of this, and a greenhouse that the house faces south so that it can let in light. And that's one of the other requirements to make it an Earthship, is that it uses passive heating and cooling. And the way that it does that is the greenhouse faces south, so that captures the low winter sun that we're having right now. The low sun, the light gets shown in at a certain angle that it gets like further into the house, and the summer sun is obviously higher in the sky, so it's shining more directly down, and you're getting more sunlight to your greenhouse. One of the other requirements is that it's off grid, so it's like you're using solar panels to make your electricity. And I'm trying to think. So passive solar heating, recycle materials, collect your own rainwater. There's probably one that I'm forgetting, but I will build an Earthship, and I will not only build one. My goal is to build a community of 50. I would love to build a whole entire community of Earthships, and I would just build these houses, and I would just have my buddies. I would have you and Michelle and Greg and everyone in the Pleiadians group. I would just have it just be, one community where we can set up our council of elders, and we can be our own governance. And I also want to with travel with my fiance. We want to build in addition to the Earthship, we want to build a tiny house on wheels. So basically, that's like a house built. It's usually only like, I think, like 412 square feet. It's like smaller than like the room that I'm sitting in, which is kind of weird. but we will build a 412 square foot house on wheels and travel across the country to different communities, I mean, different campsites, and we'll ultimately talk about the things we're talking about right now, which is just, raising consciousness, having people be self-sustaining, have people learn about nature and learn about, how to really connect with nature and the essence of, of nature. And our goal, yeah, is to travel. We would love, man, dude. Seriously, I've been talking to her nonstop, and we'll go to Canada. But we're gonna come up and see you, Larry. We want to do like a West Coast tour. So we want to like go out to California. I've got family out there, and we want to go all the way up the coast and make it all the way up to Coos Bay. Go into Canada. And yeah, man, that's the one that I've been working towards and putting a lot of thought and a lot of intention into manifesting. And I know it surely will manifest. It's merely a frequency that I just have to get on and continue to expand that frequency, make it more powerful, make it more tangible, make it more potent. I'll start with the thought process, and sure enough, when I change my thinking, I'll change my actions, which will change my results. For the sorry, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, exactly. And I can totally see you manifest doing this. But what our Canadian contingency wants to know: will you be able to tell us all the provinces in the south end of Canada, all the way across, geographically? Yeah, starting on the west coast with BC.
I could not tell you for Canadians, or just not, because that's one thing that I've learned. But I've done my research, and it was like, if I wanted to become a citizen of Canada, I would have to learn French, and it was like that was something that I didn't know, and I was like, well, what else don't I know? So I mean, it's been a really exciting process. I do have like a website up for our project. We have like a GoFundMe set up that we're looking to raise $35,000. That's usually about how much it takes to build one of these tiny houses. But we've got a website which we'll post in the description, I'm sure. I'm gonna send.
Do you have a?
What's that, Larry? Sorry.
Donate to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's on the website. So we have like a GoFundMe, and I mean, you'll see it on there. But basically, the website is set up to basically teach people how to be more sustainable. So it's got videos of different tiny houses. It's got videos on like how to build your own solar panels. It's really cool. And we've got like a news section, so we've got like tiny house news updates. It's still kind of a work in progress, but I mean, you can go on there and you can see some of the stuff that's working. I mean, I run that by myself, so it's not like I get like money to build the website. But we are looking kind of for donations for the actual tiny house, which you can do. We have had our first donation, which we're excited about. So yeah, man. As far as traveling across the country, man, like we wouldn't stop there, man. The cool thing about tiny houses, you could put it on. We could put it on like a freight or like a tugboat, and go to exactly. Larry's reading my mind over here. We could go to Hawaii. We could go to Italy. So it's like it makes a lot of sense for us, and it may not make sense for a lot of people. It's like, because you have to downsize your life, but the whole idea behind tiny house is that you may be getting rid, or you may have to get rid of a lot of things, but it's all the things that you'll get and all the experiences that you'll be able to have, because you won't be as connected to so much stuff. So that's kind of the main initiative. And for people who have Netflix, there's a documentary called Tiny that you can check out, which is really good. It's a guy who builds one of those tiny houses, but it's a short little documentary. But it's basically, the whole idea is just being sustainable, being off grid, being able to be, um, almost like closer to who we were in, the beginning, or our last known point of origin, which is like nomadic. It's like when we felt it was time to move, we moved. um, we it's it's such a simple idea, but it's like, when you feel it's time to go, it's like you would pack up everything and you would go. It's like there was nothing, there was no mortgage or job or anything keeping you there. You would just go. So it's like that is very much in tune with me and my fiance's, our spiritual journey, while we're still here, while we are here. I don't want to say still here, because that would bring in the frequency of still being here. So while we're here, that's kind of the direction that we really want to manifest, is traveling across the country, living a simpler lifestyle, living a life that's more in tune with nature, really just kind of getting back to the roots of why we're here. Because you could say, oh, it's like we're here to be batteries for a system, or we're here to be food, or to be whatever for whatever forces, which now we know, I say whatever, but there are archonic forces that basically are prostitutes or parasites that need us. They need us. We don't need them. They've tried to trick us into thinking that we need them in their system, but we don't need them. I'm very clear about that.
Yeah, and I got to jump in. Hence, brother, why maybe we're still fighting this off in the last of our dreams. These archonic forces that we need to fight off. And I just think it's amazing. And I wanted to tell everybody on a lighter note that if Tyler and Bridget are not heard from anymore, it'll be because maybe they were taken back home in the middle of the Arizona desert or the New Mexico desert, or wherever Area 51 was coming out of there. But they got it going on, and I would encourage everybody to support their cause. And yeah, maybe though, seriously though, brother, maybe that's why, like, the last of our dreams, we're fighting. We're trying to get rid of these archonic forces, because you know what, I know that you feel the same way I do. I'd really like them to leave or go back home about now.
One quick thing I did want to say, though, is it's actually counterproductive to try to fight them, because that in and of itself is giving them energy. So what you almost want to do is you want to dissolve those contracts. You want to disintegrate and dissolve those, because even fearing the resistance that you would get when you're breaking these agreements and these contracts, you want to be in a state almost of neutrality. You want to be able to stand your ground. But battling them is when you accept that there's that difference, there's that two-sided. But ultimately, when you dissolve those and you accept source love as being your only truth, they can't touch you. I think it was Cameron Knight who wrote an article, I believe that's right. He said he was the one who wrote Why I'm No Longer a Light Worker. And he had a good talk that had to do with how here, I got to plug in my laptop just real quick, folks.
Okay, while Mr. Biedebach plugs in his laptop here, it's actually Cameron Day.
Cameron Day, that's right.
That shows you but that shows the multidimensionalness of Tyler Biedebach, because black is white, up is down, day is night, and it really doesn't matter. But seriously, it's like fate. But it's Cameron Day, actually, and Michelle and I interviewed him on the Cosmic Awakening show. And yeah, and anyway, go ahead. But it's Cameron Day or night, afternoon, whenever, mid-morning. So you got to.
That would be a great show to post the link for, and we we may do that. I know I'm like telling Larry to post all these things, but we'll go back through and we'll make sure we get the important ones. Not saying any are more or less important than the other, but we'll get some of these links in here. But yeah, he had a good talk about talking. You know, when you release these or when you break these agreements with these archonic forces, there can be some resistance, there can be some kickback, because ultimately we are their food source, we are their energy source, so they don't want to lose their only source of sustenance. And depending, it all is based on the individual, whether you want to choose to live a quiet life where you just go, out into the wilderness and you do your own thing. I mean, you'd probably have less kickback or less resistance from breaking those agreements than you would if you, declare like, no, I'm going to tell people about this. I'm going to inform people and make sure people know about this, which is partially why I've been having some of that resistance in my own three-dimensional waking life. But, the little tip here is you don't fear the resistance. Like it may happen, but remember the relationship here. They're a parasite that has to cling to our energy in order to be alive or to have an experience. We don't need them. We can rid ourselves of them. We are more powerful than they could ever be, and they need us. We don't need them, which I think is a part of the propaganda or the programming that we see in TVs and movies and music. I mean, especially in music nowadays, there's a big upsurgence of homosexuality, like the whole Puff Daddy, like being a pink daddy, and it's like he talks about being gay or like waking up in bed with another man. It's like there's this whole people get the whole homosexual agenda kind of twisted. They're like, oh, people are trying to make me gay. It's like you gotta figure out what resonates as your truth. But a lot of the rap music is what I found, and this is just how I feel about it, is not saying all rap, because I mean there are phenomenal rappers who are straight. I mean these guys are gangsters. Like seriously, they had to grind it out in the streets. But I mean, there's this whole other alter ego agenda, which is like, yeah, being with your bros all the time, yeah, waking up with them like in a line, or whatever. Sorry, that was really bad. That was really bad.
No, man, but you know what? I gotta chime in there, bro, because seriously, I look at the rap movement. It's all Illuminati controlled. It had its place. When I was growing up as a teenager in the late 80s, early 90s, you had Public Enemy, NWA, Ice-T, those groups, and it was a one-time thing. They were there to wake everything up. After that, everything else is just, it's like an Illuminati control. The story was told once, and that's all it needed to be told. And it's like, yeah, there's some good rappers between now and then, but you know what I mean? The music is all corporate controlled. Gone are the days of a garage band that kicked ass, being able to get a lucky break at a gig and getting big. Those are gone because it's all Illuminati controlled and corporate controlled, and whoever they want. I mean, you and I, well, you're probably a good musician, but hell, I could sit there and sound good with all the equipment they got and with the backing they have. It's just, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And the same thing with sports. It's gotten so big. Okay, it's not that the NFL's fixed completely right, but it's a hinted, deferred thing on a point spread to an official. The league wants who they want in the big game because the ratings and they're where they are in the nation, and it's little things. It's so subtle. It's like counter control opposition. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm rattling on, but it just seems to me like.
No, I mean you're right. You're right on point, man. You are on point, like a poisonous dart. But yeah, the other kind of thing I wanted to just touch on. I know I keep getting off on these tangents, but I mean music is just something that is so important. I think to everybody. Everyone has like a certain genre or a certain song that when you hear it or it comes on, you know every word. It makes you feel a certain way. It's like, and that's getting into like that beta those beta cycles where it's like, I think it's like 6 to 8 or it's 10 to 12 cycles per second. But basically, your brain is like refreshing, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
when you're singing along or you're tapping along to the music, or you're doing chores and you're kind of in it. It's like, that's a brain state, and it's like that's where we are being manipulated, is in our brain states. Like, we're being put into these cycles where our brain is cycling, and it's like it's getting popped with these little messages sporadically. And a lot of the rap movement is about, you know, uh, making drugs sound like it's cool, and it's like, they don't talk about how there's the harsh reality where it's like, if you sell drugs, you will go to jail. And it's like they almost created this whole rap movement to try to get, young adolescent teens, people who are really, I mean, living in ghettos, get them so that that's their mentality, that they're like, F the police, my crew or nothing, ride or die. It's like they're sagging their pants, and it's like it's this whole convoluted message where, it's like they say that, if you have this lifestyle of drugs, you will be rich. But I mean, they don't talk about the complete, realistic side, where it's like, if you are out there selling drugs and you get caught, you could go to jail for life for doing that. And then, I mean, who knows? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I would encourage people to check out the real Mike Jones. Um, I think it's realmikejones.com or .org. But if you Google the real Mike Jones, he kind of talks a little bit about how someone actually was posing as him to make, this whole movement about the drug scene and rap, make it this really cool thing that seemed like, oh man, yeah, if you hit the streets and you grind it out, then you're gonna make money, and you're gonna have a nice house and a bomb car, and that's the way to live. You'll have girls, they'll just flock to you. And it's like, that's not real life, man. It's not really the way that the world works. It's not. There's a different kind of grinding where you go to work, or you stay true to yourself and you follow your own passions and your own dreams. Um, yeah, I do want to talk about symbols, and we will. I'm trying to think of a good kind of segue, but I think we're just gonna hop right into it. Segues are weird.
Symbols.
Symbolism, symbols and symbolisms. I have a really good book here that talks about, it's a dictionary of symbolism. I didn't actually pull any of this. I was just going to kind of talk, but this is the Dictionary of Symbolism by Hans Biederman. So this is a good one to check out. It's about yay thick, but it's just got a ton of different symbols, and it gives
Hey,
explanations to them.
hey, Tyler, can I say one thing, though? Never, for sure, never as a book had more symbols on the cover of it, though. That is pretty, you can tell that's got it going on right away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. One of the main symbols that I really wanted to talk about, I mean, and this is touchy subject, but it has to do with sex, and how sex, sex sells, or sex is cool, and basically it's like we're being programmed to be desensitized to sex. It's like we're basically having it made not only for adults but children too, for them to be desensitized to sex. I mean, even the symbol on the power button, and I know this is if I could find one, if I had a remote in here, but the actual symbol, it's a U with the little I in it. You know what I'm talking about, Larry? The little power symbol. It's like on Xboxes. It's on your remote controller.
Oh, I don't think you want to. Yeah, I don't think you want to get me started on that. You mean that symbol that either half the people see and they go, "Oh, that's bullshit," or the other half go, "Oh, that's an Illuminati sign," but they're too close-minded to go further and see really what it even means. So it's like counter-controlled opposition. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, yes,
So
that I.
that power symbol, right? The I with like the U underneath it. But basically, what that actually is showing is it's the female canal, it's the downward tower with the male end going into it. So I mean that right there. I mean, and that's all over the place. I mean, I mean, but it's hidden right in front of us, that symbol. And that's part of the Illuminati's control, is that they put the symbolism right in front of our faces so that we can't even we're desensitized to it. We can't even tell like what's what, which end is up or down. But that the whole sex on TV and sex in sports and advertisement especially, it's disgusting.
But hey, man, I do got to ask you though. Don't you think too with that symbol, right? It's right in front of our face though, and I just got to touch on that. They do it to the point where it's almost like counter-controlled opposition. Either you're gonna not even notice it, or a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, that's so fucked up. That's the Illuminati symbol," but they don't really know. That's all they see is that symbol. They don't really know what it's about or what it means, or
right. And I'm just gonna draw it so people can see. But that symbol right there, and I know that you've seen it, but what it literally is, it's like that thing right there. That's the penis, and this is like, and again, you could say that I'm full of shit or whatever, but do your own research. I mean, it's literally sex magic is one of the things that they try to push on us the most, is making us so uncontrollably horny that we're not even thinking with our our heart, our mind, and our our gut. Where they just want us thinking with our penis, like, oh yeah, well that will turn me on. Yeah, we probably should have said at the beginning of the show there will be mature content discussed.
Well, yeah, no, and you know what? You bring up a good point there, and I think the countermeasure to that is, bro, like people like you and I, star seeds, we're to the point now where unless it's somebody like that's our fiance, like yours, we don't get emotional like that to have that kind of a feeling unless it's that. Or I'll throw that out there, the word twin flame. But I mean, you know what I mean? We're like rising above that to where it's like, do you know what I mean, man? Where it's like, okay, you could have a few different girls that maybe look like, okay, 3D is good as whatever your girl, whatever. I'm not even saying that, but it's not even that. It's that connection you have with her that is the only way to get you to feel that way,
Absolutely. Well, and what I've really discovered is that they basically want us all to have sex with everybody. They don't want us to be married. They want everyone to be single. They want you to have as many different partners as you possibly can. And a lot of this is
counter opposition, counter control. There you go. It's a go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead, but it's a counter. See, they play this game like they do, but they don't. They want, okay, that's bad, but yet they really want you to do that, and it's such a fucking head game they're playing.
It's there's a war going on, but it's not a war that you can see with your eyes. It's a war of the mind, and and we have to stand up and be warriors. And the first thing to the alcoholic's steps to recovery, is admitting that there's a problem, and eventually, the last step. Again, I didn't go through the full program, and I know that there are people who have taken that program very, very seriously, and I take it seriously as well.
But you're a star seed,
having someone who has had to go through that experience, someone very close to me, so I definitely know that steps to recovery, is ultimately figuring out that there is a problem first of all, and really recognizing that, and in addition to the actual symbols, there's symbols in Disney. The whole, I mean, almost every single Disney movie has some kind of Illuminati symbolism. Like one of my favorites that I used to love, and now I can hardly ever watch it, was Monsters Incorporated, and their whole thing about pedophilia. How basically it's like there's a little girl who gets lost in a world of horny monsters. Like the two main characters, Mike Sully, like they both have horns, and which is a symbol for being horny, which has to go back to the symbol of Pan, or I'm trying to think, what was the guy uh, in the Chronicles of Narnia when the kids first come out of the wardrobe, Mr. Tumnus. He's that little four-legged creature with the horns. I mean, that's a symbol. It's the Pan, which has to do with, like, the, like, even Peter Pan um, Pan has to do with, like, a certain symbol in nature, which is almost like the Green Man, which is like nature, but they have, like, in a way made it so that they're using symbols of nature in movies and television, um, of this whole agenda. And it's like, I'm just now waking up to this, and it's like, there are people who are waking up every single day, more and more people, um, who are waking up to this.
Yeah, I totally believe you. I was glad that you weren't just trying to show my age here, because I grew up on Disney, but these must have been shows that came about when I got a little bit older. No, but I totally know that something like that, Disney, I mean, anything like that is completely Illuminati controlled, and people that don't want to buy it, okay, Tyler and I are the last couple of people that would be conspiracy theorists and all that, but we know what we know, and this is the case. And I'm glad I never wasted my time or heard of any of these shows, but I know what you mean, the whole Disney thing. I mean, just all these cartoons, all these things that I grew up with were Bugs Bunny, and back then, you get shot real quick and you're dead, and then you wake up again, and just in the racial undertones, to them. And
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, follow the money, It's like, really, I mean, you want to know who's running the Illuminati.
yeah.
I mean, Disney is one of the biggest corporations, one of the highest grossing corporations. I mean, they make money
Mhm.
off their movies, they make money off their merchandise, they make money in their theme parks. You know, they have, copyrights, and it's
And
it's unbelievable.
prostitution rings going on, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not even bullshitting. I mean,
I mean, we don't know,
it's
It's like,
like
but
that.
that's the stuff that's ultimately eventually going to come out, and that's what the awakening is really about, is all the stuff that has been
Hmm.
suppressed and hidden is ultimately coming to light. Because, I mean, when the light shines on it, there's not going to be anywhere for these guys to hide. Another symbol that I wanted to talk about is the cross. The traditional Christian cross. And I may not draw it exactly right, but
It's okay. I think
I
everybody,
think I think I got my proportions right. But
you'll
yeah, so
you'll get a
this
pass
one
on
right
this
here.
one. Yes.
Yeah. So what this one
Right.
actually has to do, it actually does have to do with duality and polarity in a certain point, but it has to do with the male masculine energy, and then the female energy intersecting. So it
Hmm.
has to do with, and this may rub a lot of Christian followers the wrong way, but
Good.
the
I hope.
actual character, the actual character
I
Jesus, and the
I hope
person that
so.
they talk about is he's a symbol, and the whole book of the
Hmm.
Bible is it's a parable, which is a pair of bulls. It's two bulls, and it talks about the red and the blue. And most of the stories, I mean, even Moses, or separating the sea, he divides it into two, and the whole book of the Bible is about the division. It's about the cutting of the meat. It's about dissecting the two halves, and that's no bullshit. One person I do want to shout out is a YouTube channel called True Theory, where he goes into great depths about symbols, and how symbols are being used against us, and what we can do to kind of counteract that. Um, but I mean, even the parables in the Bible, and the whole this, people think like, oh, this represents the cross that Jesus died on, to so that we were ultimately saved and forgiven. But what it really has to do with is the male and the female energies, the bisecting um, energies that create the oneness. But Jesus was ultimately a character for nature. He had to do with nature. He is nature. And if you keep that in mind when you go back and and I would still encourage people to go read read, it's a great story. It's an amazing story, but I mean that's all it is it's a parable. You know, but he's just he's a symbol of nature. He's a character. And you know, the cross, you know, people wear that all the time, you know, and say, "Oh, you know, I'm a Christian." It's like, well, actually, do you even really have you ever thought about what that symbol actually means? And it's like, you know, it almost looks like a plus sign, but what I've come to realize is it's the two intersecting energies of, you know, the masculine, male, you know, protective, dominance, and, you know, the nurturing, female energies, those two consciousnesses coming together. That's actually what that symbol represents. The cross it's those two intersecting energies. Um, you know, so that's one. The other symbol that I wanted to get to is rings, and I'm wearing a ring right now. I am engaged, so I've got a ring on. But the rings actually represent
And
Saturn's ring.
hold on, and you've got an N for the audience out there. You've also got a chin ring, so you are the Lord of the Rings tonight. The Lord of the Cosmic Rings. Okay, go ahead, man.
I hope not. That's Saturn, man. Saturn is actually. But yeah, I've got a couple piercings, and again, like I did all this before, you know, I really had a good understanding of what I mean. I could take them out, but I like oral fixation. It's part of who I am, and you know, I kind of have to be doing something there. But the rings have to do with Saturn's rings. The rings that we exchange in the ceremony of marriage have to do with the rings of Saturn. And I think one of the interesting things, and a way to kind of counteract the magic spell that we've been placed on, it actually does use two rings, but it uses the rings in a kind of different fashion. And some people will know this as the Venn diagram, but its actual official name is the Vesica Piscis. So this symbol right here, and this is a great meditative tool right here, and I know I drew them ununiformly, but those two symbols, when you look at that, what that actually represents is the two hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right brain, or the left and the right brain, I got to do it backwards. And ultimately when you picture this, instead of looking at one circle or the other, but you see it for the whole picture, almost kind of like two moons, almost kind of like two Pac-Mans with a little piece in the middle of it. What you're doing is you're combining the hemispheres of your brain. You're using both halves of your brain equally, and that's a really, I mean, it's been a challenging meditation and exercise. But when you are meditating, or you're even looking at anything, or hearing anything, or trying to, you know, use your discernment, if you picture that and you see that clear picture in your mind, you'll actually be using both hemispheres of your brain equally, and you'll be in a more balanced. You'll be able to respond more accordingly, because you're not, you know, using one side over the other. You're not using your left logical reptilian brain more than your mammalian, caring, compassionate, feeling. You're using both of them equally, which is so important. I mean, it's so important to really embrace the fact that we do have reptilian tendencies. We have a reptilian nervous system. We have a reptilian brain. I mean, we're, you know, modeled after our predecessors, you know, reptilians, which they were not all bad. I mean, obviously, you know, the fact that we can have a physical experience while still having our soul, that's amazing. I think that's amazing that, you know, we can take a breath of fresh air, and even breathing cleanses. Like the whole dynamic of breathing is such a magical thing. And even when you're breathing, I would encourage you to kind of imagine those two circles, that Vesica Piscis, and I'll show it to you one more time. But even just connecting with that picture there, and seeing, how that feels within your own mind, and really kind of trying to feel where you see that. And if you can bring it further back, and you can try to, like, when you see that picture, bring it back, and even though you're seeing it here or whatever, figure out where it's registering in your own mind, and you can kind of hold on to that. So that's one symbol of rings. That, and the Lord of the Rings, exactly. That's another parable that you had brought up, which it talks about Saturn and the rings that he has, and it's like the one ring in this whole system of pattern. Um, Christmas actually was initially Saturnalia, which was, people were being debaucherous, there were orgies, people would eat and drink uncontrollably, and it was basically, it started on December 17th, and then, would go, I think, like up until the end of the year, but it was this whole period of debauchery. And now we celebrate Christmas as this, fun time of the year where we exchange presents, and it's all about lighting up your Christmas tree. I could get into a whole nother section about just the symbology in Christmas. The whole pine tree and the lights and the gifts. There's a lot of stuff that's actually hidden in there that we really need to start paying attention to before it's too late. And I know that when you're listening to this, you kind of know what I'm talking about, that everything's not all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. I kind of wanted to close out on, because this is something that really hits home for me, and is a kind of a topic that, well, it's one of the symbols that being an actor, it's really kind of tough for me, because Hollywood, or Hollyweird, as it's called, it. Were you gonna say something, Larry? I'm sorry.
No, I was just chuckling. That was good, Holly weird. Yeah, I
Hollyweird, man,
love
because it
it.
is. It is weird. All
Yeah.
the stuff that comes out nowadays. The past couple movies that have been out, like I just went and saw Into the Woods, and that was, full. Like, I did that play. I was the narrator in that play as a kid,
Hmm.
and to see it, being done by Disney, and to see the witchcraft that they're putting on. They're basically making us watch. While in the middle of this movie, they're basically making us watch, like, these kind of ceremonies, kind of ritualistic things. Like, there's this whole scene where the witch, turns from like this old haggard, like traditional witch, to like the beautiful, like what you would call Glinda, like the beautiful witch. Whereas, like, there was just something that was weird about that whole scene. It was on a hill, and it was like the moon was shining, and it was like there's trees, and it was really bizarre. And if anyone's seen that movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But again, like, I had done this play as a kid, and that's one symbol that I really want to talk about, and that's the fool, or the jester, um, which is basically, it's the two mask. And basically, a jester is someone who's like a clown, or someone who puts on a show, and someone who has basically already rehearsed what they're going to do, and they'll make it seem like it's impromptu, or they'll make it seem like it's in the moment, and it's something that's all been, like, thought out. Like movies that we see, it's like we hear, like, the male role, like, I love you, and it's like, it was like, oh my gosh, he meant it, and all the girls in the audience are swooning. Is like, he got to that point because they had rehearsed it so many times, and he had read it off a piece of paper so many times that you believed it, and he believed that it was real. But again, it's the two mask. It's the happy and the sad mask, and it's they're putting on a show for us. And when the veil's lifted, we're going to realize that there were all these different characters that were playing these different roles. But they're all, it's kind of like a joke, though. Like, the especially movies that we see, and actors, they're they represent the Fool, which is in tarot cards. I mean, there's the Fool, which is the Zero card, which, you know, represents it's a man standing on a ledge with his dog behind him, and he's holding like a flower, and you know, it represents, you know, being in a detached state from or maybe that's the Hangman. I'm sorry, but I mean, I could probably Google the Fool, but basically they represent the Fool, or that character, just like how I said Jesus represents the character of nature. Um, you know, Santa represents the character of Saturn or Satan, um, and the Fool is basically there to, you know, entertain. But I mean, they're basically just as full of shit as any of the other symbols, because it's an illusion. I mean, it's a show being put on by, you know, who knows? I mean, you know, it seems like we are almost the ones putting on this show. We're the ones making this happen. Um, but you know, all the more reason for us to say no. Like, I don't want to watch this show. It's time to walk out of the movie theater and demand our fucking money back. You know, say like, you know what, that movie sucked.
That
You know
movie
that.
fucking sucked. Yo, T, that movie fucking sucked, and I'll say it. We want our motherfucking money back, or there's gonna be fucking hell to pay. That fucking movie was fucking shit, played out. We've seen that bullshit propaganda before, and we want our motherfucking money back, and we want a new
On our
ticket,
sovereignty.
and we want our sovereignty back, and we want some free fucking popcorn.
Free popcorn, dude. Those are perfect symbols for, like, our money is like our sovereignty. Our free popcorn is like our free will, which has been taken away from us. You know, that's kind of uh, the whole system that's been, or the program or application. I've heard so many great words this year that really kind of describe what's going on. But I mean, it's like an application or a program that's just kind of running. And you know, initially, I mean, this wasn't the way that things were supposed to be initially. I mean, things were supposed to be perfect, and things are, you know, in a different dimension. They are perfect, and we're ultimately getting back to, you know, our last known point of origin, where, you know, thoughts become things. You know, we instantly manifest things, and it's like we're already living in 5D. You know, we're having multiple different experiences at the same time. um, but yeah, the that was all I had for symbols, man. I just want to encourage everyone to do your research. You know, really, this is the time to be doing your work. I mean, it's a new year, and again, I'm not for, you know, New Year's resolutions, because if you're gonna make the change, it doesn't matter when it is, or, you know, what matters is why you want to make that change, and, you know, are you committed to seeing it through all the way? And that's really the reason why we're here, is because we knew we could make a change here, and we were committed to, you know, beyond normal circumstances. As a soul, we were committed to making a change happen. So we, you know, we put ourselves in a body that, you know, it's like the body is the way that we can, our heart center, our energy centers are the way that we ultimately elevate ourselves out of here. But you know, that we knew that it was kind of the sub clause, as it were, that we put in, you know, that we made that agreement before we incarnated here, is like, in order to get out of here, I'm going to be the one who has to get me out of here. It's not going to be some god that I sit and wait for, that, you know, touches, you know, me, and then I'm good, or, you know, waiting for something to come pick me up. It's like we are ultimately the ones who we've been waiting for to come and save us from ourselves, and save us from, you know, this reality. And we can do it. And I have all the faith in the world that every single person listening to this, and everyone, you know, in the higher planes, you know, tuning in, like, they know we can do it. They're cheering us on, they're rooting us on, and we have to be able to match that fire within ourselves. And, you know, not only the fire, we need to communicate with all the elements. The fire, you know, our earth elements. I got my crystal here, water, air. You know, really, this is the time to, especially this week, to be doing your work, and to be connecting to, you know, your higher power within yourself. And that's one thing that I've had to really discover and find out on my own, is that anything out here is actually of a lower frequency than I already am at. So I have to go further in, deeper within ourselves to actually get, the full message, or, get in touch with, that side of ourself that is all knowing, all source consciousness, all loving, no judgment, pure consciousness flow.
Ladies and gentlemen, I had about 27 good points I wanted to make, but Tyler, every time I did, I forgot about it because Tyler just kept flowing with the brilliant consciousness and coming up with other things. But yeah, we just really need to get in touch with ourselves and with Source and go within. And Tyler, what have you been up to these days? I mean, I think we've already asked that, but where can anybody find you that wants to find Tyler Biedebach? Websites, yeah, go from there, man. While I think about one of the 27 great points I want to respond to.
Thank you, man. And thank you, Larry, again, for having me on, man. Seriously, it was a total Source flow thing. Like, I saw your message, and it was like I responded as soon as I saw it, and you responded right back, and it was just we got it going. And it's just, I love that you and I have that, Source. I mean, we all have that Source connection, but I just love how it really manifests between you and I. So thank you again for having me on to Late Night Pleiadian Talk, man. It's always great to be here. People can find me on Facebook. I mean, I'm kind of back on there a little bit. I mean, I'm not on there too often. Again, I'm Tyler Biedebach. You can also find me at tsu.co, which is a social networking site. You can just find me at Yudra, which is Yudra. You can find me there. I mean, I'm on Instagram. If folks have Instagram, you can find me at oneness with a 0, because we are ultimately all oneness. So you can find me there. Trying to think, I'm on Twitter at the Yudra. I really want to shout out to New Earth Nation, which is this organization that I'm working with right now. I'm doing some of their app development for their app, and there'll be some really cool stuff coming in the coming months with New Earth Nation, and that whole organization really rolling out, and the whole sovereignty plan that has initially been the plan since the beginning, reclaiming our sovereignty, and standing not above or below, not as a master or slave to anything, but just being who we are, and standing as an equal to every part of ourself.
Wow, man, is that it?
That's it, man. That's where you can find me.
Awesome, man. Well, as always, I'm your delicious DJ here in the late night hours, Rockin' Larry Locken, and you can find me in the Pleiadians group on Facebook, Fringe Thinkers, as well as many of the regional groups that we have. You can find me on YouTube at Pleiadian Express Productions, as well as Google at Pleiadian Express Productions, and as well as many pages on Facebook. Okay, sorry, in the late night here, we're a little chill, but I wanted to thank my guest Tyler Biedebach, the Yudra, and for everything that he brought to the table. And we're gonna go ahead and call this a late night, like we should. Okay, and we're out. Peace.